Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us over £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million every day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing 15 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
the subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a highly skilled, dedicated police unit. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed.
Police officers, can you come to the door, please?
Today, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department is involved in a multiple raid.
Forget about the insurance company now, it's a police matter, and I'll be dealing with it.
Surveillance footage is used to catch a fraudster in the act.
Mr. Dada was followed into his place of work, which is where it all unravelled for him.
What it is, I do quite a lot of pick up and deliver.
And the staggering story of the vet who thought he could cheat the system, but lost everything.
He chose a life of fraud, and he's now paying for it.
In these times of financial uncertainty, an insurance policy that pays out in the event of unemployment can be worth its weight in gold. At least that's what 49-year-old Anoir Dada thought when he took out such a policy with Aviva in 2008. It's one of those insurances that you hope you never need, but unfortunately Mr. Dada was made redundant in 2011. The good news, though, was that his policy was still in place, and so he was able to make a claim from it.
He had an entitlement to approximately £1,500 a month, primarily to offset his mortgage payments for the period that he was unemployed.
Several months into the claim, one of Aviva's operatives made a routine call to Mr. Dada to see how things were going.
Hello?
Hello, can I speak to Mr. Anoir Dada, please?
He's going on at the moment, so are you speaking?
Is he at work? I can call back later on.
Yes, he is at work.
Hang on a minute, what was that, sorry? Did he just say Mr. Dada was at work?
Yes, he is at work.
Surely there must be some kind of mistake. I thought the claim was for unemployment.
What time was the best to call him back?
Around 8 o'clock.
Not a problem. Thank you for your time.
To be told that someone claiming to be unemployed was actually at work wasn't exactly the response Aviva was expecting to hear.
Clearly it would have been inappropriate to continue a conversation, but I think the explanation that he's at work was less than helpful to Mr. Dada yeah.
Apparently, aware that on face value it looked as though he might be pulling a fast one, it wasn't long before Mr. Dada got in touch to set the record straight.
So see, what is yesterday afternoon, somebody rang about 2:15, because I was at the job centre obviously yesterday afternoon because I had an appointment and it's very tough out there still.
No, that's fine, that's okay.
Well, that's that cleared up then. For a moment there, it seems as though Mr. Dada was one of those insurance fraudsters. But just in case Aviva had any doubts, he made sure they knew what a fine and upstanding man he really was.
If I was to do some voluntary work without any pay, how does that affect my things? Because I'm thinking, the mosque I go to, try and help them, and this, because I wasn't sure if that affects anything, because I'm not getting paid for it.
It's voluntary work, so it's not paid work, is it? So you can do that as much as you want.
Thank you very much for your help. I wasn't too sure, that's why I rang.
No problem. Anything else I can help you with today, Mr. Dada?
Oh yes, can you pay all my mortgage off?
So not only was Anoir Dada a good Samaritan, but he also had a cracking sense of humour. Although as far as Aviva was concerned, this was no laughing matter.
I do think some people underestimate the resources and sophistication that insurers have nowadays to identify and detect fraud. We instructed surveillance on Mr. Dada for a short period, and that uncovered a vehicle at his house, a van with AD motors on the side, and Mr. Dada was followed in that van to his place of work, which is where it all unravelled for him.
See what it is, I do quite a lot of pick up and deliver as well.
I wouldn't take you long just to give it a once over, would it?
Well, I would say about half an hour.
Yeah, half an hour. So how long have you been here then?
I've been here since October.
Oh, okay. It's alright, isn't it? It's alright.
I've done it all up.
After examining the footage, it didn't take Aviva long to decide that this wasn't voluntary work. And that this definitely wasn't the local mosque. With rock-solid evidence that Mr. Dada Boy had been earning money from his own business whilst claiming on his policy, Aviva decided to pay him a visit.
He was confronted face-to-face, and at that point, with the overwhelming evidence, he admitted that he had been working. And as a result of that, the claim was repudiated in March 2012. In July, we instructed the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. Eventually, he was convicted in the Old Bailey in 2013 of fraud and received 120 hours community service.
Now, in case you're thinking Mr. Dada Boy got off lightly, this case had a rather nasty sting in the tail.
He was also ordered to repay the monies that he had received under the policy and to pay legal costs, which was about £10,000 in total.
Thanks to a routine phone call, Anoir Dada Boy had found out the hard way that you can't cheat the system and get away with it. But what separates him from so many other fraudsters is that he did have a genuine claim.
The irony about Mr. Dada Boy's case, I think, is that he was prudent enough to take out a policy to cover him and his family in the event that he was unemployed. He was unemployed and he had a policy to fall back on, but because of his greed and his fraudulent exaggeration of the claim, he actually forfeited all of the benefit he was entitled to, and because he's now got a conviction, is going to find it even harder to get employment in the future. So the kind of question is it worth it, really?
In Anoir Dada Boy's case, the answer to that question is a definite no. Still to come, the doctored pet insurance claims, which added up to a £200,000 fraud.
Every single cat or dog that was in those policies was completely made up.
And a car insurance scammer's worst nightmare.
Normally they would say that all of this occurred in one incident, but it's not. It's 3 separate occurrences.
In January 2012, the police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
I would say to anyone who's considering committing insurance fraud that now this is no longer a crime without consequence that it may have been in the past. There is a dedicated 40-strong unit known as IFED that work 24/7 hunting down insurance fraudsters.
They've made over 450 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
So if you're thinking about it, I suggest think again. There's every chance you'll get an IFED detective come knocking on your front door.
It's 6:45 a.m. and the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department is carrying out a raid on a group of suspects who are thought to have been scamming a health insurance company. Tom Hill and his team are en route to one of the addresses.
The total amount paid out by the insurance company is about 20,000. We suspect they've been doing it to other insurance companies as well, so that figure could rise.
It's thought the suspects are working as a large group, and so IFED is preparing to raid 2 separate locations.
There's another team going to another address, and it will be a simultaneous arrest if all goes to plan.
With several suspects at the first location, Tom needs to make sure his team act fast.
It's just a question of securing entry in the first case and making sure the premises is secure and all the people inside are accounted for our own safety.
A few miles away, the other IFED team has arrived at the address of the other suspects and are in position ready to make their move. With raids like this, speed and surprise are everything. Once alerted, suspects may make a run for it.
Have a look, mate.
So, with the exits covered, the occupants of both houses are given a rude awakening.
Police officers, can you come to the door, please?
Good morning. from the City of London Police?
Yes, please. Yeah?
Do you mind if we come in and I'll speak to you? I'll tell you what's happening. Okay. Who else is in the house? We'll get them down. Are they upstairs? And I'll speak to you all at once. They're going to have to wake up.
Good morning. Detective Inspector Ben Flanagan from the City of London Police, Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. Can I come in, please?
The crew remain outside at this address. Meanwhile, at the other location, Tom and his team have rounded up the 3 occupants of the house.
Okay, we're detectives from the City of London Police, Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. I'm going to arrest 3 of you, okay, on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud. Okay, so you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you later line in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
I am ready to sort.
The occupant claims the insurance company hasn't even spoken to him about the fraud.
Talk to me first.
Okay, well, they say they have, and there is a problem, and it's been reported as a crime, so I'm going to deal with it now as a police officer, okay?
Yeah.
So forget about the insurance company now, it's a police matter, and I'll be dealing with it, okay?
The case is now in the hands of IFED, which means the investigation will be run by its rules. To make the raid shorter, IFED always asks for the suspect's help in locating any potential evidence.
As I say, we're going to search your whole house. If it simplifies it, if you can tell us where any documentation in relation to any claims that you may have made are. Is there anything down here, or is it all upstairs?
The suspects are being cooperative and have said all paperwork is kept upstairs. Tom and the team begin with a systematic search of the entire property.
We've arrested the 3 people we set out to at this address. Searches will now take place before the suspects are taken back to the police station. We're looking for computer equipment which may have been used to manufacture fraudulent receipts and invoices. And we're looking for paperwork in relation to these insurance claims that are believed to be fraudulent.
Although this case relates to health insurance, the team have got their eyes open for anything out of the ordinary. No cupboard is left unsearched. Even old computers and laptops are seized, as they could contain vital evidence in the case. Everything is bagged up and labelled, ready to be taken away and examined by IFED's investigators.
We haven't found a huge amount of paperwork. What we have found is computer equipment, which we believe it may be on there. And we found stamps, and we found a large number of memory sticks, which also could well contain data. So we're reasonably pleased with what we found.
IFED's financial investigator, Simon Stiles, has been going through the suspect's finances.
Part of my job as a financial investigator is to establish what bank accounts people have, what say they have and what they did have, going through the records to confirm that, but also to see what lifestyle they've got.
As part of his investigation, Simon will seize bank statements and paying in books to enable him to build a clearer picture of the suspect's financial income.
So all the time I'm totting it up to see what expenditures in the house, their outgoings and incoming, and does it make sense, or is there a gap which would possibly suggest that they're living from the proceeds of criminal activity.
At the other address, officers have found something which could be important to the case. IFED's Ben Flanagan calls Tom to give him the news.
We've found details of a safety deposit box here. So I'm thinking that there may well be documents relating to this offence or cash from it in the box.
If IFED want to see what's being kept here, they need to fill in more paperwork to access it.
I've now got to consider whether or not we get another search warrant. So I'm just going to see who we've got available and who could draft up the warrant application, and then we'll get over to the court this morning and swear out the warrant.
With the searches of both properties complete, the suspects, along with the evidence seized, are taken back to the station. But the most important thing now is that IFED get its hands on the safety deposit box, which could contain important evidence. Still to come, IFED are surprised at what they find.
As you can see, it would appear that we've got items of jewellery. We'll be seizing all of this.
With around 65 million pets in the UK, it's fair to say that we're a nation of animal lovers. But caring for your furry friend can be an expensive business, and in recent years pet insurance has soared, with policies on cats and dogs paying out over £450 million in 2012 alone. Inevitably, unscrupulous fraudsters have seen this boom as an opportunity to line their own pockets and are costing the industry millions of pounds every year.
Good afternoon, IFED. How can I help you?
Simon Stiles is a financial investigator for IFED at the City of London Police. In 2012, he reviewed a claim submitted by a 38-year-old vet called Matthew Morgan for injuries to his pet cat, Joe.
Mr. Morgan had put in a claim that he was driving with his wife and the cat was on his wife's lap and they had an accident.
It all appeared pretty straightforward. But when the insurance company made a routine check with the surgery who were alleged to have carried out the treatment, the practice had closed a number of months ago, which raised alarm bells with the IFED team.
The doctor who had reportedly seen the cat at the time was actually working there, was on holiday at the time.
The insurance company could smell a rat and referred the case to Simon.
Over the period of 3 years, he had set up 19 different policies on the back of 19 animals that he said he owned. But he didn't know any of them. They completely made up every single cat or dog. So it wasn't an opportunist fraud. He saw an opportunity because of where he worked, but it wasn't an opportunity, it was premeditated.
After 3 years and over 50 fraudulent claims on pets that never even existed, Matthew Morgan really was the cat who got the cream and had developed what he thought was a foolproof recipe for success.
He would make an intercepted policy for insurance of a cat or dog. That didn't happen. And at some point, he would then make a claim. Everything was stamped to legitimise it from the veterinary surgeon, and the claim form would be sent off to the insurers.
Cashing in on phantom pets and using his professional reputation meant the claims were always paid, and in his own words, it was easy money.
Because it was a professional body, they wouldn't look at it again, and they'd be happy and pay out. And the money would go straight back into Mr. Morgan's account, and Mr. Morgan would spend it. It was spent on cars, it was spent on holidays. He had family in Australia, but he didn't just go there, he just had a lavish lifestyle. Lots of trips out, a lot of weekends, breaks, a lot of meals. It was just on everyday life, but luxurious things, and a lot of people can't afford that. And he could afford it in any event, but he just chose to go a little bit more.
Quite simply, Matthew Morgan was a man living beyond his means and driven by greed.
I worked out that throughout the period of his fraudulent claims, it was a period of some 37 months. And during that time, he'd actually legitimately earned £143,000. So averaged over £5,000 a month, which most people would think was a fair wage, and there was no need to do anything else. But he was greedy, he saw an opportunity, and he wanted more. And he got £198,000 more than he should have had. Unless it had been identified by the insurers and investigated by us, he'd still be carrying on. I've no doubt of that.
After abusing his position of trust and using his expert knowledge to deceive insurance companies, Matthew Morgan was well and truly in the doghouse.
I take personal satisfaction, as me and my colleagues do, into convicting these individuals. There's only one place for them, and that's behind bars.
Simon's view was echoed by the judge when Morgan appeared at the Old Bailey on the 23rd of August 2013 and was jailed for 2 years. He had lost his possessions, his home and his career after being struck off the register of veterinary surgeons. Matthew Morgan had lost everything.
Matthew Morgan was earning a lot of money legitimately. He had no need to commit fraud, no need whatsoever. He could have had holidays, he could have collected cars, he could have visited his family abroad. He chose a life of fraud, and he's now paying for it.
For unscrupulous criminals, car insurance fraud can be a massive earner, worth almost £400 million a year. But insurance companies and the police are clamping down and fighting back. One of the biggest threats to these fraudsters are forensic engineers like Barry Wheeler, and he's seeing more and more cases where crashes aren't what they might appear to be at first glance.
The job of a forensic engineer is to look at the damage on the cars in order to establish whether the cars have genuinely crashed in an accident or whether an accident's been manufactured or whether the cars have never hit each other at all.
A self-confessed petrol head, Barry has been examining crash scenes and damaged vehicles for almost 30 years. So when Barry speaks, insurance companies listen.
This damage here takes the form of horizontal scratches. Something has scraped along the side of the car. This is a vandal scratch. That's not related to that at all. That carries on through, but then separate on here, you've got the damage on the bumper. He's reversed into a post or something. Can you see there's this vertical line? Quite normally they would say that all of this occurred in one incident, but it's not. It's 3 separate occurrences. Completely different accident.
And there's no limit to the length some people will go to in order to boost their claim.
Well, I've seen cases where people have literally hit the wing of their car with a hammer and tried to induce an accident, but that's terrible. You see that as soon as you walk up to the car, you know full well it's nothing to do with it.
An opportunist taking a hammer to their pride and joy is one thing, but what Barry's dealing with more and more are criminal gangs who will go to extraordinary measures to cash in.
There are a number of people that want to make fraudulent insurance claims, and they will make an accident happen. Crash for cash is where people will either get 2 vehicles which are both damaged and say that they've crashed into each other. They may just get a car and crash into it on purpose and say it was an accident. Sometimes they'll even dupe a member of the public into crashing into them. But they do it on purpose in order to say that an accident has occurred so that they can make a claim.
Having dealt with thousands of car crashes over the years, Barry knows all too well that the real cost of this type of crime isn't measured in pound notes.
When people are duped into having accidents, it's traumatic. Lorry drivers, they're people like you and I, they crash into a vehicle, it affects them. I mean, they may lose their job if they have too many accidents, but it's not their fault if someone's causing it. So it's not a victimless crime, there's a lot of victims involved. And of course, people are getting injured as well, genuinely getting injured.
The good news is that with the help of experts like Barry, car insurance fraud is being stamped out.
I think fraudsters need to know that it's coming to an end. The courts are becoming aware of their actions. Everybody in the industry is aware of what they're doing. We have the tools to prove the frauds that are being committed, and it's being clamped down on.
One of the biggest success stories in the fight against this crime dates back to 2007. When the Claims Fraud Intelligence team at Aviva were alerted to some suspicious activity from an individual linked to a claims management company.
There were a large number of claims that were received. The accident location was very similar, the accident circumstances were all very similar. They were pulling out of side roads and they all linked back to the same company, so we investigated further.
The idea of a claims management company is to help take the stress off the policyholder, but this particular company was only interested in helping itself.
They were deliberately crashing vehicles into each other to claim for hire, recovery, storage. The engineers' reports that they were submitting were not consistent with the damage when our engineers inspected them. The hire documentation was fraudulent and they were submitting a high number of injury claims.
The company had been staging accidents and then cashing in on the claims, and it soon became clear that Aviva were dealing with motor insurance fraud on a massive scale.
I don't think I anticipated how quickly it was going to grow. It grew on a weekly basis and very quickly we had a large number of claims, and this was a massive fraud ring of 64 live claims that we were dealing with.
But the surprises didn't end there. The investigation revealed that over a 4-year period, the directors of the company had submitted over 120 bogus claims for accidents that never even happened, in a scam worth £2 million. Unaware that the insurance companies were onto them, the fraudsters thought they were laughing all the way to the bank. But they were about to get a nasty surprise of their own.
We presented all the evidence and our findings to the Metropolitan Police, and they decided that this was an organised crime and it was something that they were going to investigate and take further. Sam Solhack received 5 years imprisonment and 10 years disqualified of being a company director, and at the time that was the largest ever prison sentence for conspiracy to defraud an insurer, so Aviva were particularly proud of being involved in this investigation.
Sam Solhack's 2 associates were given a total of 6 years behind bars and banned from being company directors for 5 years each. The trio had been well and truly claimed and shamed, and the tough sentences they received sent out a clear message to anyone else who thought insurance fraud is easy money.
I think before this case, fraudsters thought that they could get away with this kind of activity, that the worst that was going to happen was that their claims wouldn't be paid. But I think the largest ever prison sentence of 5 years shows that this is a precedent-setting case and that they will be prosecuted and they will be sentenced.
Police officers, can you come to the door, please?
Who else is in the house? They're going to have to wake up.
IFED has simultaneously raided 2 addresses in connection with a suspected medical insurance fraud group.
There is a problem and it's been reported as a crime, so I'm going to deal with it now as a police officer, OK?
So far, officers have uncovered laptops, memory sticks and several rubber stamps, all thought to be key in their investigation. The operation's gone well, although the biggest lead of the day may have come from the IFED team that raided the other property.
We've found details of a safety deposit box here. There may well be documents relating to this offence in the box.
The suspects have been arrested and taken to the local police station for questioning, while the IFED team applied for a warrant to access the safety deposit box. It's vital that IFED gets to it as quickly as possible, as they want to ensure that no one else tries to remove or destroy any potential evidence within it. Traditionally, items of high value are stored in these boxes, so the IFED team is keen to discover exactly what's inside.
And as you can see, it would appear that we've got items of jewellery. We'll be seizing all of this.
The box is packed full with jewellery, documents and other items of value, which may be evidence for the IFED investigation.
I've got a cash credit invoice here for £1,800.
We've found lots of jewellery. Until we get that appraised, we're not going to know exactly what the value of that is. But it'll be very interesting because obviously they're going to have to account for those items. It'll be very interesting to find out how these items came into their possession. So all in all, it's been a very successful day. That's everything, yeah.
The contents of the safety deposit box is IFED's largest ever haul of jewellery. The case is still under investigation. Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us over £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million every day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing, and every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing 15 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
that's the subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a highly skilled, dedicated police unit.
Police, don't move, stay where you are!
They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Today, a staggering personal injury scam that was fueled by lies and greed.
Her claim had risen to approximately £740,000.
An IFED raid develops into a drug bust.
It's something that I've not seen before in 9 years of policing.
And the extraordinary lengths that a mother of three went to in order to cash in.
She forged the signature of the doctor and also made a stamp from the surgery to authenticate the policy.
It's a simple fact of life that accidents do happen. But thanks to insurance policies, in many cases we are entitled to compensation for these unforeseen mishaps. Local councils see more than their fair share of personal injury claims. But Haringey Council know better than most that when it comes to compensation, some people are never satisfied. In 2008, they received a complaint from local resident Barbara Farai.
Mrs. Farai claimed that she fell over while she was walking with her granddaughter. She claimed that she tripped and she fell and she hurt her knee. And she said she'd tripped and fallen on a broken paving stone.
With the level of wear and tear that road and pavements are subjected to, incidents like this are inevitable. So Haringey Council began their usual procedure for such a claim and launched an inquiry.
Homes of Haringey didn't dispute the fact that she had fallen, that she had suffered injuries, and the council, when it investigated that claim, found that it had been negligent in maintaining that section of pavement.
So, we have a genuine claim for a fall that actually happened, and the council had admitted negligence. Sounds like a textbook case for compensation. What could possibly go wrong?
Her initial claim was for damage to her knee. The council made an offer which was approximately £7,500 on the basis that Homes for Haringey's assessment of the injuries were that it would have resolved itself within a 3 to 6 month timescale.
£7,500 for an injured knee seems fair enough, but Barbara Farai didn't agree and decided to take matters into her own hands.
She submitted her own medical expert opinion to say that she was severely incapacitated by the fall and the injuries were likely to be ongoing and severe. We sent Mrs. Farai to our own medical experts who agreed that her injuries were substantial and likely to be continuing beyond the initial 3 to 6 months original prognosis.
In light of the revised assessment of her injuries, Barbara Farai submitted a new claim for compensation. Although it's fair to say that the amount she was asking for isn't quite what the council were expecting.
Mrs. Farai claimed that her quality of life had altered so substantially that her claim had risen to approximately £740,000.
For those of you who aren't mathematically minded, that's almost 100 times the figure that Barbara Farai was originally offered. But how did she get to such an inflated amount?
She claimed her husband had to give up his work to care for her 24 hours a day. She claimed for additional care support beyond her family. It was for out-of-pocket expenses, for taxis, for additional expenses as a result of not being able to live her life normally as she claimed to have done before.
The level of care and assistance that Barbara Farai was claiming for was so extensive that Haringey Council began to have serious doubts about the legitimacy of her claim, so they decided to investigate further.
We made a decision to put Mrs. Farai under surveillance to see if what she was claiming was actually true in her day-to-day life. It was felt that Mrs. Farai thought that she was being followed and resorted to using crutches and getting support from her family members. However, when she felt like that she wasn't being followed, the crutches were dispensed with and she was able to walk normally, including carrying heavy bags of shopping up and down the hill, entering the house without difficulty. So the surveillance activity in this case we felt was not only was it justified, it supported the Homes for Haringey's case against Mrs. Farai.
With the video evidence clearly showing that Barbara Farai's claims were untrue, her case for compensation was falling down. And as Haringey Council's investigations continued, they discovered the severity of her injuries weren't the only thing that Mrs. Farai had been less than truthful about.
Mrs. Farai's original statement made no mention of the fact that she had an existing condition of arthritis which affected her knee. Both her own medical expert and Homes for Haringey's insurer's medical expert agreed that they had both been misled by Mrs. Farai and revised their statements accordingly.
Barbara Farai's case was on dodgy ground, but she still had one last chance to set the record straight.
We presented the video surveillance to Mrs. Farai and her solicitor and invited her to revise her assessment of the £740,000 claim. Mrs. Farai declined that, and so the case went to court.
So, from an original offer of £7,500 for a legitimate claim, Barbara Farai's greed and fraudulent actions landed her in front of the judge in the High Court.
The judge made an assessment that her injuries were unlikely to continue beyond 3 months, and in his opinion, the claim should have amounted to no more than £1,500. As opposed to the £740,000 that she eventually claimed. In fact, the judge was of the opinion that she wasn't entitled to claim anything.
But unfortunately for Mrs. Farai, that was just the beginning.
After the judge had said that Mrs. Farai had lied to the court and to him, Mrs. Farai and her husband were found guilty of contempt of court. Mrs. Farai received a 3-month custodial prison sentence. The judge awarded costs to be paid by Mrs. Farai to Homes for Haringey of £100,000.
It's hard to believe, but what had begun as a genuine case for compensation had spiralled into a landmark legal case that sent a clear warning to anyone tempted to exaggerate a personal injury claim.
We're not an easy target. We will investigate any and all cases that we think are made fraudulently, and we will always seek the heaviest penalty.
Still to come, surprising discoveries.
Just stumbled across something that's quite important. It will have a big impact on the local community.
And a summer holiday scam.
What set out to be a family holiday in Lanzarote, it turned into a nightmare for her.
Owning a pet can be an expensive business. The good news is that a pet insurance premium can cover unforeseen vet bills and even pay out in the event that your furry friend is lost or passes away. But inevitably, some people have seen these policies as a means of pocketing a few quid. And in 2005, the insurance company Agria dealt with a policyholder who, it would turn out, lost pets with staggering regularity.
So the policyholder was a traveller who lived in Scotland, and part of the complication of the case was that he had multiple addresses. So very difficult to pin him down, very difficult to tie one address to another. The first claims received from this policyholder were for 2 St Bernard puppies. Now they were worth £850 each, and they'd just been lost.
Losing a set of keys or a £10 note is one thing, but to misplace a pair of St Bernard puppies, that really takes some doing. With no vet's records and a dubious set of circumstances, Agria had their doubts too.
It was very suspect. We just couldn't gather the evidence to prove that the puppies hadn't existed or the policyholder didn't own them. So the ultimate resolution to that was that we paid the case.
So that's one claim and one payout. Of course, it may have just been bad luck. However, less than a year later, another claim form landed on Agria's doorstep from the same policyholder. This time, it was £350 for a poodle puppy that had died. But once again, the details were sketchy at best.
It had an illness, but it hadn't seen a vet, so we couldn't establish that the animal actually existed or that the policyholder had owned the animal. And then when the animal died, there wasn't a veterinary certificate because the vet hadn't certified it dead.
With the claim raising so many unanswered questions, Agria rejected it and didn't pay the policyholder a penny.
It is possible that the policyholder could have been very unlucky. I think with the lack of pushback from them, perhaps we'd called or made the right call in that instance.
But this wasn't the last that Agria heard from the claimant, because just over 18 months later, they received another claim form. This time it was an encore of the Disappearing Dog Act, except that this one was a pedigree bulldog worth over £2,000.
The policyholder had set the puppy loose in the back garden, come back 10 minutes later, and the puppy was missing.
The puppy was actually a year old, but that wasn't the only thing about the claim that didn't quite add up.
Quite bizarrely, for a year-old animal, it had never seen a vet, so it had no veterinary records, and when the breeder had submitted the purchase receipt, surprisingly, it had got lost in the post.
Suspicious that the missing bulldog was in fact just a load of bull, Agria decided to investigate.
We'd sent the loss adjusters out. They couldn't verify that the puppy had or hadn't been lost, so on a balance of probabilities, we settled the claim.
So that's 3 claims and 2 payouts to the same policyholder. But just over a year later, Agria's paths crossed with the claimant once again, when they spotted something on the paperwork which set alarm bells ringing.
When the claim form came in, it was from a completely different address, from a completely different policyholder, but on the front of the claim form was one of the addresses that the previous policyholder had been using, and that address was given as the address of the breeder of the puppies. So instantly there, with the past history, there were suspicions raised.
Unsurprisingly, Agria wasted no time in investigating the claim, but when they visited the owner, they made a rather unusual discovery.
There was no indication that dogs had ever lived there in terms of bowls, in terms of leads, in terms of baskets, in terms of dog food. So we were highly suspicious.
After the visit, the owner ceased all communication with Agria, and with zero evidence that the dogs ever even existed, the case was closed. So that's 4 claims and 2 payouts. But you've guessed it, that wasn't the last time Agria dealt with what had to be the world's unluckiest dog owner.
In this instance, it was a pug puppy, and the pug puppy had got parvovirus. So this was a claim for veterinary fees. The puppy did subsequently die, but initially on the original claim, parvovirus is something that the insurance policies expect owners to vaccinate the animal against. Probably because of the nature of this dog owner, this breeder, this dog dealer, he hadn't bothered with the vaccinations. So no vaccinated puppy, we declined the claim.
This time, the owner's track record of never taking his dogs to the vet had backfired. And further investigations revealed he had another 6 policies in place ready to make claims on. Although as far as Agria was concerned, this dog had had its day.
But if people are determined to defraud insurers, sometimes they'll find a way. Luckily, in this instance, we stopped 3 cases, stopped potential 6 others. The downside of that was we paid 2.
In January 2012, the police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
I would say to anyone who's considering committing insurance fraud that now this is no longer a crime without consequence that it may have been in the past. There is a dedicated 40-strong unit known as IFED that work 24/7 hunting down insurance fraudsters.
They've made over 450 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
So if you're thinking about it, I suggest think again. There's every chance you'll get an IFED detective come knocking on your front door.
It's 5:30 a.m. and a team of IFED officers are on their way to give another suspected fraudster one of their unique wake-up calls. A man Taylor is heading up today's operation.
This morning we're going to an address to effect an arrest, hopefully of a male who we need to speak to regarding an insurance claim for the theft of his tools. They've subsequently paid him out £1,000 on the first occasion, and he's gone on to submit a further 3 claims, and they've paid out £1,000 in total.
It was the multiple claims on the suspect's contents insurance that led IFED to suspect foul play.
What we'll look to do this morning is to go in, arrest our suspect, and then search for any items relating to any offence, particularly fraud.
Having arrived at the address, the team prepare to go in.
We're from the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department and the City London Police. We need to speak to him, all right?
The person who's answered the door is claiming the suspect is at work, but IFED officers are a tenacious bunch and have persuaded the person at the door to call the suspect. He's now on his way home and can look forward to a warm welcome from the IFED boys on his return.
He's at work, he's working night, so we've just phoned him and he's coming back. He'll be back within the hour so that we can hopefully speak to him there.
Sure enough, just under an hour later, the suspect arrives home.
You're under arrest on suspicion of fraud by false representation, OK? You don't have to say anything at man with defence, you don't admit you in question, something which you later line in court, and anything you do so may be given evidence, all right? But what we need to do is we need to search inside, all right? Yeah. So we're looking for some items in particular. We'll speak to you about exactly the items that we're looking for once we get inside. What?
Got a warrant?
No, we're going to search his property under Section 32 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, all right? That means so we can search for any items that we believe are relevant. We can search for any evidence at all, actually, under Section 32 for the place that you immediately come from, which is your home address.
With the legalities out of the way, the search gets underway, but the cameras remain outside. Almost an hour later, a man emerges from the property, having made an interesting discovery.
Some receipts there, one for £100, and just some paperwork and his mobile phone. The reason we seize his mobile phone is because we believe that any photographs that have been taken of tools are more than likely going to have been taken on the mobile phone. So what we do is we take that back to the police station, we'll download all the data from it, and then from that we can pick the bones out of it and see what information we want from the data from the phone.
But weeding out documents isn't the only success of the day, because the team have also unearthed something that the local police will be very keen to take a look at.
One of the DC's gone out to the shed out in the back, there's like a little outbuilding. He heard some whirring from inside, and then our suspect has said that he's growing 50 cannabis plants there. So what we're doing now is I've called the local police force down to assist us with some uniform officers to dismantle it and seize it. What we'll do is we'll probably seize all of the plants and then from that take a specific sample, but it'll be a crime that will be more than likely investigated by police.
For a man and IFED, it's an unusual bonus. After all, it isn't every day they arrest a suspected fraudster with green fingers.
It's quite a sophisticated setup, so he's obviously taken quite a bit of time to put that together. The door's key-coded to get in, which is totally unique, something that I've not seen before in 9 years of policing.
As local police units arrive, the cannabis farm is dismantled and bagged up as evidence. As far as IFED is concerned, though, today was all about bringing a suspected insurance scammer to justice, and a man is happy with the way the raid has gone.
I think we've got more than enough to look at going forward. Obviously we won't know until we interviewed him, so he's giving an account of what he's got to say.
As the last of the cannabis plants are removed, a man reflects on the morning's events.
Yeah, it's been a good result all round. Just stumbled across something that's quite important. Although not important to our case, it's still it'll have a big impact on the local community.
Every year, thousands of us Brits pack up and head off on our holidays. But unforeseen circumstances can mean that even the most perfectly planned trip away never gets off the ground. Thanks to travel insurance policies, we don't have to be out of pocket when disaster strikes. Although in 2013, the officers at the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department discovered someone who saw these policies as a means of lining their pockets.
Joanna Hunt is a case we dealt with last year. She was a mother of 3 children, and she booked a holiday to go to Lanzarote. She booked this holiday 2 weeks before the flight, and within 2 days she'd taken out 7 policies of insurance to insure her risk against travel. A couple of days before she was due to set off, one of her children became unwell, and she took that child to see her GP. And the GP agreed that the child was unwell and would be unfit to travel.
A child falling sick is one of those things that just can't be helped. But with 7 insurance policies in place, Joanna Hunt was able to help herself. And that's precisely what she did.
She made the claim on the policies. So the insurance company sent her the claim forms, and she made a claim on all 7 policies. So the holiday cost $1,600, and had she have been paid out on all 7, she would have been making about £11,000.
Almost £9,000 profit in the space of a few weeks wouldn't have been bad going. But fortunately, defrauding insurance companies isn't that easy.
The fraud was uncovered when the insurance companies, they do talk to each other, and they communicated that they were all about to pay out on a policy. So when they discovered that, they froze the payouts and they referred the case to ourselves.
With IFED now running the investigation, Joanne Hunt was brought in for questioning.
Joanne Hunt gave an explanation in interview which had to be checked out, so we went to see her GP. He confirmed that yes, he had seen the young daughter, and she had been unwell. The 7 claim forms were shown to the GP, and whilst he confirmed that he had signed one of the policies, he also said that the other 6 were forgeries of his own signature. In order to commit this fraud, Joanna Hunt had to forge several documents. The first one, of course, was the policy of insurance. She had to lie on that form to say she hadn't taken out other policies. She forged the signature of the doctor and also made a stamp from the surgery to authenticate the policy.
There was never any dispute over the fact that Joanne Hunt's child was unfit to travel. But because she'd lied and forged documents to claim on multiple policies, IFED were now dealing with a clear-cut case of fraud. But of course, Joanne Hunt had what she thought was a fair explanation of her actions.
At the time, I don't think she realised how serious this case was, but when she was interviewed in the police station by IFED detectives, she tried to explain that the reason why she took out the 7 policies wasn't in order to commit a fraud. She thought that she'd take out the 7 policies so that when the paperwork arrived, she would then look at the small print and then decide which policy she wanted to continue to take out. The remaining 6, she said she was intending to cancel, but she didn't. And she went on to claim on all 7 policies.
Unsurprisingly, IFED didn't buy Joanne's excuses, and so she was charged with 7 counts of fraud by misrepresentation.
Well, by the time she got to court, she realised that the court may not have accepted her excuses, and having taken legal advice, she pleaded guilty in court. She was sentenced to a suspended prison sentence, and she also received community service and a fine and costs.
Like so many other scammers, Joanne Hunt had been seduced by greed and the prospect of making easy money. But she discovered the hard way that fraud is a crime which doesn't pay.
Joanne Hunt was a young mother, 28 years old, mother of 3 children. So what set out to be a family holiday in Lanzarote, it turned into a nightmare for her, and she's lost her good name for life.
Having investigated cases like this for the past 2 years, Dom knows full well what the consequences of insurance fraud can be.
I think generally the fraudsters who commit these crimes, they do think it is a faceless crime, but in fact every person in the country who has a policy of insurance, whether it be for travel, whether it be household, whether it be health, we are all paying the extra on our policies because of these fraudsters.
With £2 billion a year lost through insurance fraud, companies are doing all they can to fight back. But one of the biggest problems they face is that lengthy investigations cost time, money and resources, which could be devoted to legitimate claims. The key to winning this battle is to try and identify fraudulent cases as quickly as possible. And one of the ways insurers are doing this is by using the likes of Sally Griffiths and her team of desktop investigators who are trained to spot dodgy claims over the phone.
What we're really listening out for is what they say, but also how they say it. Signs of nervousness, hesitation, any indication at all that the customer is perhaps buying time or being evasive, using like certain techniques that we call parroting, repeating the question back, so that we know that there's something not quite right, they can't answer the question fluidly.
But the advantages of these techniques don't end there, because Sally's team have also managed to identify which type of insurance fraudsters think is the easiest target.
People believe that it's easier to commit travel insurance fraud without getting caught, and also they believe that it's not going to affect their no claims discount as it would do for a motor or a household claim.
And believe it or not, travel insurance fraud can even be affected by the weather.
During the summer months, we do have an increase in claims coming through as people are obviously going on holiday. The particular trend that we saw last year involved the nice weather that we had in England, and we found that there was an increase in cancellation claims. So it seemed that people were cancelling their overseas holidays in order to save money on that holiday and then stay at home and enjoy the sunshine here.
So for anyone who thinks that conjuring up a bogus claim on their holiday insurance could be a nice little earner, Sally has some words of warning.
People think that making a false traveller's insurance claim is going to be really easy. They can just come on the phone and speak to someone and all be done and dusted. The reality is, if they're speaking to a trained investigator, every lie that they say will be picked up on and they'll be caught out.